Barbados finds itself on a new list of global tax havens. Our top story in the Barbados Today evening news for Tuesday, December 5th. Thank you for joining us. I am Mary Claire Williams. Barbados is among 4 Caribbean nations that the European Union has named in a new blacklist. The EU says those countries, which include Grenada, St. Lucia and Trinidad and Tobago, are not doing enough to crack down on offshore avoidance schemes. EU finance ministers met in Brussels today, and they said the new list was compiled after 10 months of investigations by EU officials. They also announced that those countries could face potential sanctions in the coming weeks. Brussels says it will write to the blacklisted countries in the first instance to explain the decision and what steps they can take to be delisted. British overseas territories of Bermuda and the Cayman Islands were named in a previous list in 2015, but they are not included in this new list. The EU says St. Vincent and the Grenadines have also improved fair taxation. Earlier this year, International Business Minister Don Villinis warned that Barbados has not escaped the stain of being labelled a tax haven. In other news this evening, prevailing fears over job security as a result of the economic downturn is said to be taking a toll on worker commitment and motivation in the private sector. That's according to the Chief Executive Officer of the National Initiative for Service Excellence, Kim Tudor, in her address to the Leaders Forum this morning. She said figures from the 2016 NISE Employment Engagement Index indicate that the retail and wholesale sector worker engagement indices are so low that they have placed the entire private sector behind the public sector. Tudor says nearly 32% of private sector workers are disengaged compared to 25% in the public sector. According to her, the wholesale and retail sectors registered the lowest level of worker engagement at 20%.
In this environment, the job security may actually be more important than the pay. Because what you want is that you know the income is sure. Whether it is little or a lot, that it is sure. Because even if it is a little, you could do higher purchase, you could budget, and so forth. But not knowing if you're going to have a job, that is more unsettling. And so I think that's why we found that there was more change in the job security than in any other indicator. And what we have here then is that wholesale and general services gave scores like 5, and then accommodation and food service had the highest levels of job security, felt more secure. So retail felt least secure, and accommodation and food services felt more secure, and the public sector was towards the right as well, feeling more secure.
Despite these figures, Tudor says overall worker engagement numbers rose by 8% between 2011 and 2015, but overall productivity dropped from 7.1% to 6.9% in that same period. The National Union of Public Workers will resume salary negotiations with the Ministry of Civil Service next week. General Secretary Rosalind Smith says she anticipates a meaningful counter-offer from government to the union's proposed 23%. Smith also says that public officers are looking forward to a salary increase before Christmas. The Freundel-Stewart administration will be seeking help from its regional and international partners to resolve the sewage problems on the south coast. Last month, the Barbados Water Authority said they have ordered specialized materials to address the ongoing challenges in the network. And this morning, Agriculture Minister David Estwick told Barbados Today that government will be seeking external help.
We are looking to see how we can assist us, and in the interregnum we are looking to see how one or two expert companies out of the United States, one in particular Illinois and California, and I was told this last night that we're also looking at a company out of Trinidad with some expertise in the particular area. And so I toured the sites and looked at it myself. It's a challenge, and so all I can do at this point in time is to work with our technical staff, work within the ambit of the BTI and the ministry, and try to find the solutions as quickly as possible.
Sports now. West Indies captain Jason Holder has been suspended by the International Cricket Council for an overrate offence. The ICC announced the West Indies was hit by a slow over rate penalty after being adjudged to be 3 overs short of their target during the opening test against the Black Caps. West Indies lost by an innings and 67 runs in 4 days on Monday. Players were fined 30% of their match fee, but Holder was handed a 60% fine as the captain. Under ICC regulations, players are fined 10% of their match fees for every over their side fails to bowl within a specified time. That penalty is doubled for the captain.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Thank you for staying with us. We're back with news from the region. And there appears to be some disagreement within the Guyana government over the decision by the sugar company to retrench workers at the Rose Hall Sugar Estate. Gaisuco issued a statement last week saying it had issued 400 dismissal letters to sugar workers, informing them that their employment will be terminated on December 29. But State Minister Joe Harmon said he was taken aback by the announcement, even as Agriculture Minister Noel Holder said there should not have been any surprise. Further afield, Spain's Supreme Court has withdrawn an international arrest warrant for Catalonia's former leader, but he could still face detention if he attempts to return to the country from self-imposed exile. We get more in this Reuters report.
Some of the heat is off for Catalonia's former leader. Spain's Supreme Court says it's withdrawn an international arrest warrant for former Catalan President Carles Puigdemont, currently in self-imposed exile. He fled to Belgium with 4 of his ministers after the independence referendum he led resulted in Madrid taking direct control over the region. The court mentioned Puigdemont's desire to take part in new elections in Catalonia in their decision to drop the extradition bid, but it's not clear whether he'll return soon. Puigdemont is still facing charges there, including rebellion and misuse of public funds, and he'd likely be detained there for investigations that could take months. Several secessionist leaders who stayed in the region are still behind bars, although a number have been released. The new elections are scheduled to take place on the 21st. The most recent polls suggest the pro-independence parties will lose their majority in the local parliament. Madrid hopes that will help calm the nation's worst political crisis in 4 decades.
That's news this evening. Remember, there's more on our website, www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook. We're on Izumi Media in bus terminals and Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also find us on Mix 96.9 FM. I am Marie Claire Williams. Good evening.